So, yeah. So how did it come about?
Yeah, very easy. We started when we started working together with Lion Steel, our main partner in producing the knives. We started with a knife called Kilo One. Kilo One was also a fixed blade knife with a kind of worn clip blade, and very useful, and it was successful. And shortly after that, we introduced the November 1 knife. It was a smaller version. It was a more traditional type of blade, some kind of spare point blade. And both knives were pretty successful for a certain time. And after that, people, and we're making just small production runs.
Yeah.
So we do not make big, large-scale numbers, thousands or something like that. For example, for the production of the Type 1 knives, like the Alpha 1 Bravos and so, of course, much bigger numbers. But everything that comes from Italy is normally in the number between 500 to maximum 1,000 pieces. And so when the Kilo 1 and the November 1 was sold out, there was naturally the question, what comes next? And so both knives were special in their own way, with blade shape and everything. So I was thinking about what could be next, and I was always someone in love with a very simple knife, not too fancy, and I wanted to have a straight handle instead of a handle with a lot of curves and ergonomics and everything. So that was important for me for the use of a tactical knife, where you pull it out of your sheath and then use it for whatever, cutting you free, and I don't want to say fighting, but all kind of tactical jobs that you have to do. And so, but it always limits you a little bit in the way you can handle the knife. For example, if you had the Kilo 1, followed the shape, almost the handle shape of the Alpha, and with index finger groove and everything. But if you want to twist that knife in your hand by probably cutting in this direction, it's no longer that comfortable, especially if you work a little longer with it. And that was the reason why I decided to have a more straight handle, so that you can twist the handle in your hand, and it's in both directions. Even if you push or you pull, that is quite comfortable in your hand. That was the reason why I decided to have a more straight handle, a more classic shaped handle. But very important for me was, of course, to have the guard, an integrated guard into the overall design. And
on that point, the guard it's functional, but it's relatively small.
Yes.
Especially, am I right, the Prepper 2, it's much more pronounced.
Yes.
So what was it that limited the, is there a reason why that either wasn't larger on this knife, or
it could have been larger, for sure, but I thought, the overall shape and style, and of course then we're talking about aesthetics and everything, so a larger guard probably would maybe destroy the nice outline of the knife, and I thought that guard is still functional, it's still good enough, it's good index, you actually feel where the end of the knife is, what's very important, and I saw really no reason to have a larger guard. Good point. For the Prepper 2, of course, which is more camp-size knife, much larger, which you can use for chopping and everything. So that's a different thing. But for a knife like this, where your main purpose is really to cut, I thought that guard is good enough.
Also, with the size of guard, and as you talked about the lines and straight handle, and it's a more traditional look.
Yeah.
And many of the traditional knives don't even have a guard, so
Yeah.
by keeping it just enough to work,
Yes.
you keep the line of the knife looking
Exactly,
that
exactly,
way.
exactly. I really want to have a classic looking knife, and since I started collecting knives and looking into knives, I was always a fan of Bob Loveless drop point knives and everything, and so maybe that was something that influenced me by thinking about what kind of knife I would like to have in the nature, and what kind of jobs I want to do with a knife. And so no, it's more or less from the shape. It's more or less an old school type of knife, but for the materials that we use, it's a modern knife. For example, like you see, of course we have also wood. We edited wood last year, but we started with the G10 handle, and very tough material, as you know. And we had that special grooving here inside. In the beginning, when we started working with line steel on the kilos and on the November, we had that kind of handle grooving that looks like Stone Age, you know. So that's very nice. It looks extremely good. It looks extremely tactical. It gives you a really sure and hard grip. But on the other hand, if you probably work with this knife for a couple of hours, maybe also with wet hands or something like that, you will feel that this really hurts after a while. And so I decided to have a more rounded handle, and but still something that prevents that the knife slips out of your hand. Of course, you need some kind of structure in it, otherwise it can be tricky. And so that's the reason why we have this kind of pattern. And I saw that kind of pattern also on tactical pistols. For example, like the 1911 combat pistols. Many handle scales have a shape like this. So more or less, this was adapted in a certain way on this handle as well. And it really grips very nicely.
It does, yeah.
And so I thought it's a good shape for the knife.
But with the wooden scales,
Yeah.
Which is a very different grip pattern, but then the material itself is different.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a reason why we haven't this kind of structure in the wooden handle. It's because simply you cannot do that with wood.
Yes.
Because all these parts here, they are so thin, you would break it. And so of course you could do it in a few handle scales, but in a larger production, even with CNC milling and everything, it's difficult. And so we decided to have it a little smoother, but also with a kind of pattern on it, so that it still support your hand a little bit, so that it won't slip out of your hand. So that's the reason why we have that kind of pattern on it. But more, it's a really slight pattern. It's not that aggressive like this one.
Yeah. And is that because of the material itself? Is that the reason why the lanyard hole goes straight through? Because
that was the main reason.
On the G10,
Yes,
I really do love the
exactly. Isn't that nice?
the neat concealed lanyard.
Yes. That this is more traditional. This is more classic. That's a typical way to put a hole in it for the lanyard. But I thought this is very nice by milling inside the handle, a kind of channel from both sides, and so that the lanyard comes out like this, and it won't disturb you by handle the knife, gripping the knife and everything. So it's very, very, I think it's clever made, and it looks very nice as well. And that's the reason why we came up with this design. But you couldn't do that on the wooden handles because it will break. They tried it at Lion Steel, and after a couple of production samples, they said no, that wouldn't work. And so that's the reason why we changed it again to a classic style like this.
And of course, if you want to change the cord, the fact that the handles come off,
Yes,
intended to access the hollow compartment,
exactly. Exactly.
Then that's all very easy. So while we're talking about that, then the compartment in the handle.
Yeah, compartment in the handle. You know, my love for knives started many years ago, longer than I really would like to believe, in the early 80s, and I'm honest enough to say that I was very much influenced by survival knives that were used in movies like First Blood and Rambo, and I'm for many years I'm a lover for hollow handled knives, or for survival knives that have a kind of compartment inside. And so we were talking about that, and so when you see, for example, the old Kilo 1 or November 1, of course we always had that cutout in the tang area to make it a little lighter. And so when I saw that, I said, hey, why can't we take advantage out of this? And so on purpose we said, okay, the screws, we try to stretch them as far as possible so that they are on the outer side of the handle, so that we get as much as of compartment that's possible. And at the same time, because we were forced to do milling of the handle from both sides, so we said, okay, then let's try to make also a cavity inside the handle, not only in the tang area, but also in the handle.
Before having the cavity,
yes,
you were milling the other side anyway.
Exactly.
So it's just changing the pattern, what you cut.
Exactly. And we found out that by the end we had a very nice compartment. Don't ask me exactly the dimensions here. I have to read by myself, but the dimension is very nice. And okay, it's not waterproof, but on the other hand, you know, it's not a diving knife, and the chances to go really into deep water with it, it's not really there. And so, but if you really tighten it, I think it will even prevent water to come into the cavity. So for a certain while, but it's not waterproof. That's the only thing that we couldn't do. But it's good enough to put all kind of survival stuff inside. Sebastian, my assistant, very nice to demonstrate that here on one open handle with a little compass, with needles, with fire starting stuff and everything. So a minimum survival equipment really fits inside the handle.
Yes. Yeah. Personally, I quite like putting together fishing kits, and that works really well in there, which is going to be dunked in water anyway.
But in terms of whatever, fire starting or something like that, that could be difficult. But all the rest, even the little compass that we have, it doesn't matter. It goes into water. This is not waterproof.
And in this case, this is a hollow handle with a difference, because there is no, weakening. You've got a tang which you would have had a cut out anyway because of balance and weight, and you do that's on all, so many other knives. You've just taken advantage of it.
Exactly. And you still have a full tang knife. And that's the difference between the classic hollow handle knives with a tube.
Yes.
And there you have such a short tang, put the tube over there, and most of the time weld it or something like that, put some epoxy in it, and that's it. But that was always also in the old time the weakest point that we had on hollow handle survival knives with a tube. And here you have a full tang knife. You could even use the end of the handle to whatever, smashing or something like that, or hammering. And so for me personally, I think this is the best way to bring a kind of cavity for survival equipment inside a handle. And that was basically the idea behind it. And in terms of the size of the knife, I think it's a very compact knife. Of course, the blade length is also a result of the German law, to be honest with you.
Okay.
In Germany, we have a law, unfortunately, that for fixed blade knives that you want to carry in public, the blade length should not longer than 12 centimeters. So this is 11.8. just a little under
Yeah,
the
just
12
in,
centimeter,
yes.
and so it's German legal. You can carry it around. And even then, I thought almost 12 centimeter for survival knife or for compact survival knife is really good enough.
Yes,
It's really good enough.
it is. It'll do all the jobs you need it to.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
In terms of that intended use being sort of survival outdoors, now this is just playing devil's advocate because I prefer what you've done, but you know there's a plethora of Scandinavian grind, bushcraft type knives. So your choice of the full flat grind. Is there any particular reason? Would you have even considered a Scandinavian grind style blade, or this would always be your preference?
From the experience in the past and from my philosophy, it's my personal philosophy is that the flat grind, D-grind, however you want to call that, is the most toughest grind that you can do. If you, for example, want to do a hollow grind or something like that, of course, it's easier to sharpen, no doubt. But at the same time, I saw enough hollow grinded blades where parts are broken off, something like that. And on the flat grind, it can happen, of course, but not as easy as with a hollow grind. And that's the reason why I wanted to have a flat grind from the top of the back up to the edge. So complete line, and that's my thinking about having a solid knife and a solid blade, and it's my philosophy.
The 6mm blade stock is really substantial.
Yes, and pretty much influenced by the American market, and again from my days as a collector and from the days when I started looking into custom-made knives and American custom-made knives, everything was 1/4 of an inch, and that's a typical size from the US. And all the knives that we had before was 5mm, a little less. But so I thought, hey, that is a size that's really so tough, and that's for example also another reason why I wanted to have a flat grind, because the size, the width of the blade, and everything works together with the 6mm and the blade length and the width of the blade. And so that was the reason why I really wanted to have also a flat grind in combination with the 6mm of the blade thickness. And that's the idea of, and of course with 6mm in the tang area, you have of course a little bit more cavity at the same time.
Yes.
So, so everything works very nicely together, and that was the reason why I decided to have 6mm. It's a very strong knife, and for example, one editor of a German knife magazine last year, and of course it's not intended to do stuff like this. I'm not a big fan of that, but he asked me, he said, Mr. Pohl, can we really try that? And in case if we break it, we have to talk about it. So, okay, let's give it a try. So, I think it will survive. So he pushed it really through an oil barrel several times, and the only thing that happened is that it scratched the coating. So, but the blade survived, and he was still able to shave hair from his arm, and so he was pretty much impressed, as much as me. And
it proved itself.
Yeah, it proved itself. Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Right. Well, thank you very much.
I have to thank you.